being here this evening. I really appreciate it. My name is Dory Parmalee, and I'm on the Westwood School Committee. And tonight I'm pleased to introduce Rebecca Kidwell, who is a candidate, a finalist with us for the position of superintendent. Just wanted to remind folks, both listening at home and here tonight in the library, that we're doing these open community forums for all of our finalist candidates this week. And we will also be doing interviews. We have been doing interviews as well. Those are taped as well by Westwood Media Center. Thank you, Westwood Media Center. And the interviews will be aired tomorrow morning. Yesterday, the school committee sent out an email with the schedule for all of these events, as well as a feedback link. Please make use of that link to provide your feedback to us. We will certainly read it and appreciate having all of that information. And now I'll turn it over to Rebecca to introduce herself. And
thank you.
Thank you.
So, hi, I'm Rebecca Kidwell. I'm currently the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, Assessment, and Professional Development in Rockland. Prior to that, I was in Braintree for 23 years as a middle school teacher, high school teacher, English, and then a curriculum leader in English reading and English learner education, followed by a technology director. And I'm here because Westwood is a fabulous town with great staff in your school department that I would be thrilled to be a part of that leadership team. So thanks for having me tonight, and I appreciate you coming out to talk. So I'm here if you have questions.
All right. Hi, I'm Joanna French. I have a third grader at Downey and an eighth grader at Thurston, and I'm also co-chair of the middle school PTO.
Fabulous.
So I actually have a couple questions for you, but I'm going to just start with one, and then I'll wait my turn for maybe another opportunity. But I wanted to ask you, when you think about your role in the community as superintendent, do you think it's the role of the superintendent and the district leadership to set the values for the community or reflect the values of the community?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And for the record, I'm asking all candidates this. So if you watched last night, you got a preview.
So that's a great question. I think it is the role of school leadership to enact the values of the community, as well as to lead and introduce other points of view when appropriate. But it is not the role of school leadership to proceed counter to the will of the community as a whole, if that makes sense. So, you know, all of us in educational leadership have our teacher training and our graduate degrees and all of these things, and we know what good teaching and learning looks like for students. And I certainly have my own core values that I'm bringing to the table, and I wouldn't choose to be an educational leader in a community where I didn't think my values matched the community values. And from everything I've learned so far today in Westwood, there's a very good match there, and I'm excited about that. To ensure that I really understand what the community is hoping for, I think it's important for the superintendent, other members of central office, and school leadership to be listeners, to be collaborative, and that includes parents and the community as stakeholders in that conversation. So whether it's through a public forum like this, or whether it's through online possibilities for interaction, whether it's a survey or something else, I do think literally we wouldn't be here without the children and the families that we're serving. And that has to be a two-way conversation about what that relationship looks like. Thanks. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Regan. I am a parent with 2 children in the high school, one who's a graduating senior and another who's a freshman this year. You might have met my husband Brian last
did.
week. My question is related to special education. I'm interested in understanding, how do you think about what a successful special education kind of offering looks like, and how do you measure that, that it's delivering for the students what's needed for them individually?
Right, so I think there are potentially multiple lenses for looking at what's successful, but a lot of it is focused on what is the IEP goal or the purpose of the special education offering. So I would want to see an offering that was as inclusive as possible, and demonstrated the academic and social and emotional outcomes for the student that we were seeking. And when I say we, I mean the IEP team that is collectively working to, create the best structure we can for this kiddo. So from what I've seen in Westwood today, I was at Downey at the middle school and at the high school. I saw lots of variety in ways that students could access the curriculum, lots of really strong supports for kids with high needs, an effort to ensure that they are always part of our community. And that's really valuable to me. So I guess when you think about what is the specific goal that we're trying to reach, and then what are the outcomes related to that goal, that's what I want to look at. But philosophically, where do I want it to be? I want it to be inclusive. I want it to recognize that there are lots of differences in our community, and that's okay, because we are all part of the community, and we are all going to work together to support that. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ray Murphy. My wife and I have 2 daughters in 5th grade at Downey. And my question's about teachers. We moved to Westwood in 2017, right before our daughters started kindergarten, specifically because of the schools. And we had heard wonderful things about the school district, and our expectations have been universally exceeded. Every single teacher professional that our daughters have encountered has been amazing. And we couldn't be happier. I'm aware that in the most recent negotiations with the teachers union here, there was some level of contention. Based on my experience with the teachers and the fact that my wife is an educator in another district, my default position is teachers should be given absolutely everything they want. Understanding there are financial realities and budgets and those sorts of things that need to be dealt with. But can you talk specifically about how you would support and empower the teachers who are, in my experience, doing wonderful work here, and we want to continue to do everything necessary to make them successful?
Yeah. So kind of 2 prongs to that. One is a union question, and one is about supporting teachers. A teacher this afternoon in one of the faculty forums actually asked me the same question, and I'll give the same answer that I gave to that person, which was, the teacher was kind of saying, we're trying these things out. We really think they would be good for the kids in our classroom, and we want to know if you would be supportive of that, and if you'd give us the latitude to do that. And before the person even finished the question, I had a huge smile on my face, and I was like, I think you already know the answer, which is yes. Yes. The ideas that you're suggesting are research-based. They're smart. They're good for families. They're good for kids. I like what you're saying, and yes, let's try it. Let's be open and honest and communicate regularly. Be transparent with families about what we're doing. Let's not jump into something without having played out all of the elements of what would be required for this situation to be successful. But that being said, absolutely. I think one of the strengths of the system, as I've seen so far today, is the dedication and commitment of individuals, of grade level teams, of departments, to keep advancing. And I would not want central administration to hold back that creativity and that drive when it's in the best interest of kids. And then to the second part of your question, should we give the teachers everything all the time? Union negotiations are really tough, and we're not the only union in town. And so Westwood is not the only place that had a really hard time this year. And I'm so thrilled to hear that you were able to come to agreement. That's a big deal. My approach in union negotiations is less about your demands and my demands and more about an interest-based or collaborative system where you identify needs or problems and the school committee and central administration identify needs and problems. And then we look at ways that those overlap and ways that we can come to creative solutions that are better for both of us. So an example would be central administration says, and school committee and leadership say, we're having a problem retaining teachers, and we're having a problem getting good candidates. And the union says teachers are burnt out and they're working harder than they ever have, and I don't know how much longer you can expect us to do this. Those are two problems that have an intersecting area where we can create better working conditions, which may or may not be translatable exactly as a salary raise. And teachers can say, here's what would make it more tenable for us to keep doing this job. Here are the supports we need. But when we come in with, we need this percent, we're giving no percent. That's a much harder argument, much harder discussion to have. So I really like it when we are able to identify some common priorities and then look at common solutions that move both sides forward. So.
So I've been talking with a lot of teachers, and they really have been through it,
Yeah.
through the pandemic, and then through a contentious teacher negotiation. And I think that there's a feeling of optimism for what's to come over the next few years. And you, as the leader, will have an opportunity to build back some of that morale and community among the teachers. Can you give some ideas or examples of ways that you've built that kind of community among, in your current positions or in past positions?
Yeah, so first of all, that's a great question, and you are the first person to ask that one today. I'm on like hour 10 of questions. There's been some, and that's awesome. So how would making our schools and our school system an inspiring place to learn includes the staff feeling valued and inspired. And part of that is the freedom question that we just discussed, having knowing that you're respected as a professional, knowing that you have training and expertise, and being there to support and coach that forward. So my interest as a leader and a supervisor through the supervision and evaluation system is not to say, you're doing this wrong, you should do this differently, you didn't have that thing in the right corner of the, no, none of these things. It's to make sure that our students are having academically strong, equitable experience across the district, and to find areas for growth and then celebrate and move forward with making those as effective as we possibly can. There are so many good things happening here, so many skilled professionals already working here. I would be remiss if I came in and said, I want you to do it this way, because there are a whole lot of people that already know what they're doing. So how we get back to a sense of community, I was talking about that, not the exact question, but the idea of that sense of community coming out of post-COVID this morning with someone else from the team. And I do think that different people are on different timelines for how they're recovering from the experiences that they had in that isolation time. And I do think we need to be empathetic and kind and understanding of everyone as a human on our team, much more than maybe in the past we could have been like, oh, we're all going to do this and it's done. We're a team again. That approach is not going to work. So it's really going to be about the conversations, the listening, the supporting people when they get into a hard situation, whether that hard situation is having to make an unpopular decision related to something happening in a class or a course, or whether that's someone who's in a personally difficult situation. And as the workplace, we're recognizing that your humanity is very valuable to us, and we want you to be safe and healthy and well. So I think the sense of community, it seems maybe counter to say it, but the rebuilding of the sense of community is going to come from the individual relationships and making sure that people have people that they feel connected to. And it doesn't necessarily mean everyone is connected to everyone, but I would hate to see a little clump here and a little clump here. I would always want to try to weave together a web of making sure we know each other and trust each other and can count on each other as a school district team.
How are you?
Hi.
So I grew up in Hanover,
Okay.
right on the border of Rockland and Hanover.
Sure.
So a little bit of a different community. So I guess my question is, do you have a plan of attack on how you're going to implement kind of your beliefs and how you're going to move forward
Right.
in Westwood versus Rockland?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. There will be absolutely no attacking, I promise. I have a strong interest in, as I've kind of alluded to in some of the other answers, a really collaborative approach, a really listening-based approach, and an approach that really reflects what this community needs. I was in Braintree for 23 years, and that's a different community than Rockland and Westwood. And I worked hard in my time there to understand what families and students in the Braintree community needed. And as the tech director during the pandemic, that was a tremendous adventure, what people needed, what kinds of support they needed in their homes for learning to keep going. Moving to Rockland, I left my role in Braintree to work in the central office in Rockland, knowing with tremendous excitement that I was moving to a community that at this point is about 25% first language, not English. Knowing that I was moving to a community with socioeconomic challenges, and knowing that I was moving to a much smaller community with the challenges that come with that. So Rockland and Westwood, substantially different in socioeconomic level and demographics, comparable in population size for the public schools. Some of the parts of my work in Rockland that I've enjoyed the most are bringing 3 elementary schools together. They're doing a building project right now to move 3 elementaries into one. And that has a lot of feelings associated with it. That's very challenging, but it's also a great opportunity to come together as a community. I've enjoyed seeing the results of raising the expectations for all students with a high-quality curriculum to ensure that kids have better opportunities coming out of their public school experience with us. And so things like that, I think, are highly transferable to Westwood. Even if we're saying straight up, looking at MCAS scores, Rockland scores were here and Westwood scores were here, and I was able to help this kind of movement, I would love to help this kind of movement. I'm not saying we're good, we're gonna stop here. So what would my entry plan look like? Joining the team starts with a lot of listening. It starts with listening to your school leaders. It starts with listening to teachers, listening to other town departments, making sure we have relationships with police and fire, with town hall. But also listening to parents and listening to students. And so figuring out who are all the people that I need to connect with, setting up opportunities to connect with them. Many of those opportunities, individual or small group, some in person like this, some online through a survey or something like that, so that people who aren't able to make it to a community forum can still be part of the process. Asking a common slate of questions. I don't know if I'm dropping stuff there. Asking a common slate of questions that focuses on what they most want the person in this leadership role to know. So what are the strengths? What is your role? What do you do here? Who's your team? What are the strengths that you can identify? Are there any needs that you'd like to share? What is your team working on right now? How can I support you in that work? And how should I best stay in touch with you after this conversation? Because that's the beginning, not the end of the conversation. So I'm not going to assume I successfully learned everything in 45 minutes there. And then synthesizing all of that information into, here are some strengths I was able to identify in our system, here are some areas for growth, and here are the next steps that we're going to take. Which doesn't mean I'm going to show up with like, and so now we're going to do this. Usually the next step is, we've identified a priority, here are the steps we're going to take to flesh that out and make sure we thoroughly understand the need, and then figure out ways to address it.
I'd love to hear a little bit about what brings you energy in this career as an educator,
Sure.
as a school administrator.
Yep, it's teaching and learning. So it's the education part of the educator career. Truly, that's where my heart is, and that's the part of the day that makes me happiest. I'll have the smile on my face when I see great learning opportunities happening in a classroom. When I see kids talking to each other about their thinking, when I see kids being kind and inclusive to each other because of structures that we've put in place to help that happen. I loved getting to go into the classrooms today. The engineering classes at both the middle and the high school, fantastic. It was just awesome to see. The preschool class, they were doing a share bag. It was adorable. And then getting to talk with several of the students at the Downey about their writing, about what they were doing for math. There was a group in some independent work. That's the part that makes it worth it. So then you're saying, well, wouldn't you just stay a teacher? Because that seems like where that stuff happens. So how did I end up leaving the classroom? I was in Braintree, and I had been teaching for in the district. So my very first job was teaching 5th grade. Then I taught 7th and 8th. Then I taught high school for the bulk of my teaching time, and I had the opportunity to move into the curriculum leader role, which those are K-12 roles in Braintree. So that was a big change to get to look at a broader vision in English and reading. And when I got there, I thought, this is a perfect job. I'm going to do this forever. And it was a really great job. And then my district leadership noticed that I had a skill set for systems and bureaucracy and dealing with reports and obligations that we have as a governmental body. So I took on English learner education for the district at a time when the population was just growing very quickly, and we didn't have a whole lot of expertise in the area, and used that. My assistant superintendent at the time knew that I would learn what I needed to learn to do that. So I learned, did the research, learned the best practices, learned the regulations, got us through the DESE monitoring reviews and all that kind of thing, got my licenses to be an ESL teacher, became an admin instructor for the retail initiative, which was when the state required all teachers to have a certain baseline of skills in English as a second language. And I know this isn't a population that's a large group right now in Westwood, but I hope it speaks to how I get from teaching kids to realizing that I have a skill set that can make an impact around working smarter, not harder. That I have a skill set that can keep the bureaucracy out of the classroom so that the focus there can stay on teaching and learning. And when I'm tired of the report writing and all the stuff we have to file, I get to leave my office and go see the cool stuff in the classroom, and it's great. So I hope that answers your question. It really, teaching and learning is why we're here, and I don't forget that. Thanks. It's okay, you can ask more stuff. I'm here for you.
Going back to Joanna's question at the top about alignment of values, even with values that are well aligned, that doesn't eliminate all disagreement, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about a time when you had your mind changed about a decision you had made from feedback you'd received?
That's a great question too. Oh my goodness, you guys are bringing it tonight. I like it. So A time when I had my mind changed. I can think of times when I shared what I thought was the best way to solve a situation, and that isn't the decision that we ultimately went with. And I can guarantee that in those settings, I understood that the decision we make as a team is the decision that we make. So an example is in a recent setting, I was advocating for 2 more teachers because the number of students needing the services had just grown so much. And I said, we really need 2 more teachers to do this job so that we can meet the services that these kids need. And the financial powers that be said, that's not happening. Like, we don't have those 2 teachers. That's not going to happen. It changed my mind in thinking 2 teachers was the only way to solve the problem, and caused me to look at other ways to get at what was my ultimate goal, which was making sure the students got the services they needed. So, not an example of exactly a mind change, but an example of a creative workaround to reflect for myself, wait, what was I trying to get when I asked for that? And is there another way that I can still get at that? Or did we not, maybe we didn't need that, maybe I misread the situation. I'm gonna think of something at like 1 a.m. That's like a mind-changing moment. But I guess what I can say to you is that I mean it when I say I'm committed to being a listener and someone who works together to get us to a coalition decision that is the best decision we can make for students. And that not everyone will agree with that decision, but the decision-making process needs to be inclusive, transparent, heavily communicated, and people who are disappointed afterwards need the opportunity to understand the criteria and the reasons for the decision, and then what steps we can take to mitigate their concerns going forward. Thanks.
What an opportunity. Can you talk about something you're really proud of over the course of your career? Something that happened, something you worked towards, a project that you worked on?
Okay, so I'm going to pick one from just this past year. It's still in progress. I have really loved getting to develop a comprehensive professional development system for Rockland. That was a core part of what I was brought on for, and at the time that I was hired, Rockland moved to a new school calendar that had 15 half-days and a full day, 15 early releases and a full day for professional development. That's a lot of professional development, and they were coming from not having had as much time for that in the past. And how you ensure that when we're sending all your kids home early on a Thursday, we better be doing something good with that time that actually has outcomes and results. Yes, exactly. So I am proud to have put in place workshops and opportunities for teachers that were focused on their needs, that were focused on what they said would be helpful and relevant and useful to them in the classroom. Proud to have regularly asked for their feedback after those workshops to make sure we were meeting their expectations, and proud to have created an inclusive system that involved choice. So this would be relatively easy to do if I just said everybody has to go to blah, 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 and you're going to it 2 Thursdays a month now. But you know what? Just like the kids, we're not all in exactly the same spot. And there are some of us who would be thrilled to work on a project for 15 half days in a row, same project, all good. And there are some of us who have a few short-term projects and could use a couple other things as well. So we, in addition to lots of professional development around understanding the curriculum and best practices in pedagogy and differentiation and inclusion and all of these things, we also had CPR certification. We also had staff wellness. So just recognizing that we're all in a different spot and being safe, healthy, well, valued educators in front of the kids is going to be what's good for our district. So I'm pleased to see how that situation has turned out. The other one that I'm most proud of, and maybe this is more impactful, is during COVID times. Braintree when we closed on March 13th, was a bring your own device district that was not fully one-to-one in all grades. And my department and I went into all the buildings and figured out who had what and repurposed it all and set up and we brought in every family who needed a Chromebook and families who needed a hotspot and, like made sure people had what they needed and then stayed open throughout the pandemic. It was us and food services in the cafeteria. And we worked in person when a lot of other people were remote, making sure that you could trade in your broken Chromebook, your charger's not working anymore, your screen is suddenly orange, we would love to fix it. And it was always so striking to me that here's the line for families who need food during that time, and here's the line for families who need their connection to the outside world, which is what we are with the technology in that moment. So the fact that we were able to pivot from a not one-to-one situation to getting one-to-one ASAP and maintaining families' connection, that was a big deal. If you're wondering how I ended up a technology director when I was an AP English teacher and like, where did that go? The superintendent at the time, we were experiencing a leadership turnover. I was a more experienced curriculum leader than most of the others. He asked me to be the director of curriculum. I said, yes, I would love to, that sounds amazing. He went to school committee and he came back the next day and he said, they voted it, you're the director of curriculum and technology. I said, really? It's a learning curve. So my time there it was an opportunity for me to learn a lot about educational technology, which I'm grateful for, but it was also an opportunity for me to put together a team of people who had their own expertise, knew their roles, and worked together really cohesively. So I guess I would say I'm proud of that team too. And most of them are still together in Braintree, which I'm pretty happy about because I think they're well served by the group that we put together there. My standing question all day has been, what do you want and need and hope for in the person in this role? So as you think about this transition to new district leadership and the person that's going to be filling that role, what do you hope for? What do you need from that person? So if you'd like to share, or if there's anything else that you think I might not have gotten a chance to learn about Westwood, I would love to know. Listener for life. So.
I think it's important for someone in this position to be a listener, as you talk about. But also, it's an important moment in our community to bridge some divides and to bring our community, not just our children, but our adult community back together in a way that's, building on our humanity and our compassion. And I think what you said about everyone processed this pandemic differently and on different timetables. And I think that there's an opportunity to bring our community together and heal. And so I would be looking for a leader who shares that value and thinks of creative ways to support, for example, I'm the PTO. If there's ways to support PTOs and ways to bring communities together, not just the children and children's activities, but, the parent community as well, support those types of efforts. Be vocal about them, be visible about them, attend them, show enthusiasm for them, I think would go a long way to bringing us to the other side of this process.
Great.
Piggybacking on some of my own comments earlier, I think you already addressed this in some of your answers, but one of the things that I'm looking to hear from candidates is that from our perspective, I think there's a lot that is working well in the school district already, and it's not a place where someone's coming in with a, laundry list of things to be fixed or a desperate need for a change agent or any of those things. By all means, come in and find opportunities to improve things. And you talked about that in the context of the rankings, but you can be more specific than that too. But coming in with a sense that there's a lot that's going well, and
Yes.
keeping the trains running is part of the job, even if it misses an opportunity or two for you to put your own stamp on something,
Yeah.
not for the sake of it, right?
Yeah. So to that point, that's come up a couple of times with different groups today, with teachers and with administrators. Some people asking like, what are you going to bring with you that's like your thing? And my thing is listening and collaborating. So so what I want to bring with me is what expertise in systems and past work I have that can help what's already happening here. I have zero interest in bringing the PD plan that I just described to Westwood if that's not what you need right now. What I'm interested in is finding out what you need and how my analytical skill set can help just a little bit.
I can look for all day, so. I'm happy to answer questions or things to tell you. So if anybody else does, this is your chance. Otherwise, we can give you a few minutes to breathe.
Yeah. Thank you all. I really appreciate you being here tonight. I know it's a lot. I'm a parent myself, and the obligations are never ending. They're fun, but they're never ending. So thank you for taking the time to come out and be part of an important conversation about schools. Thank you.